I tell you what, guys, we don't take it for granted as, Rupert and I sit here waiting to go live. We don't take it for granted that there's going to be so many lovely people waiting for us in the chat here. So you've outdone yourselves, actually, this evening, folks. So welcome. I'll do a rundown in a moment. Needless to say, if you're on YouTube and you're watching the recording of this, best idea is to skip to about the 5-minute walk mark where the show starts proper. We're just doing a countdown, so an informal countdown, so people get a chance to settle in and settle down. But as I can see from the chat, they're all settled in and settled down already.
Yes. Yeah, it's nice to see you all.
Certainly is. Now look, you see, Eddie from Göbekli was here first, and it seems like you've been sitting there for ages. Are you still there, Eddie? That's the thing.
Eddie's been there for an hour, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and you're very welcome, Joris. Joris, I presume it's Joris de Mol. A first-time live view. Good to see you from the Netherlands.
Eddie's live for the first time as well.
More new first-timers. Lance, Lance a biker from New Brunswick, and Christian from the People's Republic of Badenoch. Might have a few people scratching their heads, but I can reliably inform you that Badenoch is a village in South Wales, between Merthyr and Pontypridd. Am I right?
Well done.
No, I know I'm right. So
well done.
I cheated.
Not far from a certain rocking stone, I think. But,
oh, that's true. Yes. John, Alison, Frank, Jill, Sue, Graham, David, Stuart, Alison Ward. You're still in French mode. And Daniel, David, hi there. We've been talking about you, David.
David, I owe David an email. I'll get back to you shortly, David. Yeah. Yes, David's been doing more really quite remarkable authentic reproduction stuff, honestly, David. I don't know where you find the time apart from anything else. It's quite fantastic.
Hello, Ruben.
Yes.
Steve-O. We three. Oh, who is we three? You're going to change channel so we recognise who you are. Okay. And Helen. Hi there. Howdy, Sue. Very good.
Oh, my goodness.
Stan from Saddleworth. Oh, this is a good start.
Right. I need to tell you, I have systems still on because I have a battery backup system.
Oh, my Lord.
But the power has just gone down. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, no auxiliary lighting. Oh, this is fun then.
I have got. That was a noise. I don't know if it's going to come back on. I can go. I'm just going to go and get a light. Oh no!
It's come back on again.
I tell you what, thank God for battery backups. I've got a battery backup on the modem in the house.
Well done. And, well done, man.
And on the relay systems and everything else, just in case stuff like this happens. But there you are, thank God it's come back on. In case you're wondering, folks, we've had a storm warning down here. It's nothing like any of the hurricanes ripping through the state, but we had a warning this afternoon. Official warning came out across the region that people should not go out unless they really had to, and we had storms coming, possible mudslides and flooding and all the rest of it. I'm on a hill, so I'm not going to get flooded, but I've been waiting all day for this storm. It hasn't happened. It's just rained with a bit of thunder.
Hello there. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you for joining us live, all you wonderful Patreon folks, and thank you for tuning in and watching the recording, people of YouTube. It's really great to see you all. We've got a packed show as ever this evening. Do you want to rattle through a few things that we can look forward to, Rupert?
Rattle through a few things. Hey, oldest cheese.
Oh, oldest cheese. I'm sure we've done oldest cheese before.
Do you know
anyway,
what? We'll fill in the blanks on a few things, but yes, this is officially oldest cheese, oldest actual cheese. Then we've got a bit of news about the Scythians. That's quite exciting because we do like a bit of Scythian activity. We've got we've got a longhouse discovered in Poland.
Yeah, and those of you now, Patreon folk, you'll have to bear with us because since I got back from Austria, that's all we've been talking about. Well, I'm afraid we get to talk about it a bit more tonight because I think the linear band ceramic and the fact of the rondels and the Kreuzgrabenanlagen, which so many of which are in Central Europe, really deserve a little bit of a light shining on them. So I hope you'll bear with us if you're not too bored with us wittering about the rondels of Central Europe, of Poland, Czechia, and Germany and Austria, and the rest of it. So there's more of that to come. There's a bit more film and some stills of some of the material culture that was on display in the museum, the place that I went to. So got that to look forward to round about the midway stage. And then a couple of more things about one more Longhouse article. And we're going back to Tollense. How do you pronounce it? Do you pronounce it Tollense? Or I go with Tollense. I don't know.
I say, what do I say? I say Tollense.
Yeah,
I say Tollense, but what we're talking about.
Yeah, that battle site that just seems to keep on giving. Iron Age battle sites. Really. More stuff coming out of that. So, I mentioned me coming back from Austria. I was on a short holiday with my wife going to Vienna, and of course, it was only a week before that we got back from Brittany. So the prehistory guys has been a bit sort of not quite firing on every cylinder, except that we've been doing stuff. We recorded loads of stuff from Brittany, and I brought back stuff, for Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge project that fits, that is that piece of the jigsaw that fits along the Danube and all that stuff, the story of the Neolithic there, coming back from Austria with that. So it's not exactly as if we've been idle, we just haven't been sitting in these seats here, which makes a difference as far as
you haven't
out there are concerned. I haven't, no. Yeah, but
you haven't. I have been sitting in this chair here,
but you haven't been going live on your own while in my absence, have you?
I have not been going live on my
exactly.
own, but I have been in this chair. Researching and writing all sorts of things, which you will get into, of course.
Nigel, no need to apologise for being late.
Here. That Joris and Frank have both told us that there is an E that should be pronounced on the end of Tollense. So you're correct. Please correct me on that again.
Tollense. Okay. Yeah. Is it? Yeah. Or a Z, a fricative. S.
And Sibylla. Hello, Sibylla. Yes, we have been busy, if seeming to be quiet on the outside. Yeah.
I think there's an upshot to that, though. The fact is that because of the being out in the field and bringing back material, we've got a backlog of filmed stuff that needs to be put into the timeline and needs to be created. So I think a lot of our attention is going towards longer form stuff, which soaks up a lot of time in the day anyway. So it is easier, we confess, to doing lives like this rather than saying, "Oh, let's do a special on that," or "Let's do a special on that," because they suck a lot of oxygen out of the atmosphere, and we end up not getting so much done. So yeah, that's about right, isn't it, Rupert?
I think so. We've got a few things that we need to mention, haven't we, before we actually get stuck into show proper?
Let me just say,
what's that look of panic on your face?
Oh, it's not a look of panic. It's just remembering, mention the actual projects that we've got going on at the moment. I'm editing, and it should be out next week, a piece about Göbekli Tepe, strangely enough, which puts the whole thing really much more in context, and is about the period before Göbekli Tepe, and that's part of the Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge project, as is the next thing in the pipeline. We've got a program probably 40 minutes long to put out about Stonehenge, and then there's about 5 different shows that will come out of Brittany, out of our visit to Brittany. So all those things are feeding along, and you will see them eventually, we promise. But it probably means that the other our usual product, apart from going live from time to time, will probably be a bit less than usual. I've mentioned Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge several times. Obviously, good people of Patreon, you know what that's all about. But anybody on Patreon, being with us for the first time, might not know what that's about. Essentially, we've it's called the Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge project. It's a long-term thing. We determined sometime last year, was it the year before, that we would attempt to put together a series of films that told the whole story of the Neolithic from about 10,000 BC right up to 2,500 BC and the building of Stonehenge, which is a lot of stuff to pull in over the time. But we're doing quite well so far, I have to say. We've been to Göbekli Tepe already, and there's several shows out there that you can view. And we've been to Brittany, obviously, and Stonehenge. There's a lot of filling to go in there. But the point is we need your support. And next year we intend to go to Greece, and we intend to go to Italy and the Italian Alps to climb a mountain, don't we? Say more about
not
your
necessarily passion. In that order.
Say more about your axe heads and Mount Montviso.
Well, yeah, this has been a dream of I'll say of both of ours, but it kicked off. I just had this very romantic idea that because so much of the axe trade, the most prized axes came from Mount Viso in the Swiss-Italian Alps. And I thought, what a beautiful idea if we could actually take one of the known greenstone axes. I mean, there's some in Scotland, there's some in Devizes Museum in Wiltshire. Thought, what a beautiful thing if we could borrow one of those axes and take it home, actually take it back to Mount Viso. Now, the likelihood, I suggested this to Alison Sheridan, and I won't say she laughed in my face. She's too good a friend to do that. But she did say dream on, or words to that effect. But anyway, it's the plan. And it's one of those things that if you don't ask, you don't get. So I am going to see if I can grind people down and let them lend us a greenstone axe and see if we can take it back home to Mount Viso. We're going to. It's a principal part of the film that we want to make there. Is to go to one of the known quarry sites where I find it extraordinary that there are greenstone axes that have been found in Scotland that we know came from that one of the quarry sites on Mont Viso. It's a phenomenal thing. And obviously they're so prized. I say obviously, but so prized because of the inaccessibility of some of the places from which they came. So yeah, that's a thing. We haven't actually decided which month we're going to do Mont Viso yet, but we figured we ought to do it before either of us get any creakier. That's probably wise. Probably wise.
Sad but true. But the whole thing about the axe heads, like obsidian before, is so important to the whole story. It's a fundamental thing that we're anxious to tell. That really hangs the Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge story together. So we're aiming to do that, preferably early next year. But we'll see. But we need your help. And if you have a look in the links in the description below, down to our Buy Me a Coffee page. It's a way of supporting us, or supporting the project without committing to a monthly subscription or anything like that. Which is what, of course, I'm sorry about this, Patreon folks. You've heard all this before, I know, but got to be done. And which, of course, our Patreon friends, our people in our Patreon community do support us through a monthly subscription. That's not to say we wouldn't like you to join them. There's a link in the description for that below if you're interested in finding out. Our Patreon folk get quite a lot more than just a regurgitation of the YouTube stuff as a special podcast every week. Sorry, Rupert.
Alison has said which of you is Frodo and which is Samwise, and I have to say, Alison, you're barking up entirely the wrong tree when it comes to characters. There, at very best, it's Gollum and Shelob. Sharon has been saying Peter Cook and Dudley Moore recently. Do you know what? I'll take that because when we're not on air, my language is quite suitable to do that.
Bad. Anyway, we've mentioned Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge. We've mentioned what's in the pipeline. I can't think of any other sort of behind-the-scenes housekeeping that we need to do, apart from apologising in advance. Both Rupert and I are in some kind of recovery from chest infections and colds and stuff. So there may be a little bit more clearing of the throats and stuff like that. I can tell I'm getting a bit hoarse already.
Yes.
God, we're only
it's a shame we don't have little clickers for muting the microphones, really. That'd be so much easier.
Well, I've got one up here, but I have to reach over. So if I'm going to cough,
thing you have to reach. I mean, me too. I can reach, and it would just be easier.
The only thing I can do to soothe the bronchioles is
Stuart, you're on it. Yeah,
is do that.
Yeah.
So I think unless you've got something more that you feel that people need to know about before we start this.
No, I don't think so. I think we're quite excited about the ongoing stages of Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge because it's like every time we gingerly lift up the edge of the rug, and the amount of stuff underneath, it's quite exciting, and it is that messy sometimes. Yeah,
are quite broken, but it's astonishing, some of the stuff that we're finding out, and it'll be down to us to really pull it together into some kind of cohesive whole and a narrative, or the two Ronnies. I don't know about that.
Joris, how's the tree doing? Am I missing a reference here?
So look, Rupert. Which do you want to do first? Do you want to go to the steppe? Do you want to go to the Eurasian steppe? Or do you want to do cheese first?
Cheese.
Cheese it is.
Yeah, cheese. Honestly, cheese.
You're obsessed.
Uh, yeah,
What a
actually,
headline.
joking aside, do you know this? The thing that I really love about this, I've been fascinated by the Tarim Basin mummies for a very long time, and so I was quite astonished that this should come up. You know, the oldest cheese with reference to them, and it really is worth clarifying here that when we talk about the oldest cheese, this is the oldest actual cheese. They've actually found cheese. There's plenty of older evidence for cheese, but it's all secondary evidence. So they've found and the scrapings of inside
Lipids
ceramic pots, for example. So they found lipids that they know were in relation to cheese making.
in the
This is the first
Neolithic,
time they've
much further back.
Yes, yeah. I think the oldest actual definite is 7,000 years old in Poland.
Yeah.
But this is later. Do you know what? It's funny, Mike. Every time I'm looking at the screen and I try to scroll up.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
When you're the one that's got the controller there.
I have control, apparently.
You do.
Yeah, it's a good headline, though, isn't it? World's oldest cheese has been found rubbed on a bunch of mummies. Okay.
Yeah.
So, it says, around 20 years ago, a group of archaeologists made a curious discovery. Something had been smeared on the heads and necks of several mummies in the Xiaohe cemetery in northwestern China's Tarim Basin. Tarim is the river that runs up there. It was a whitish substance and clearly very old, but nobody knew exactly what it was. Now, a new study has been able to solve the mystery. They were looking at the world's oldest known cheese sample. So, did you know about the Tarim mummies? You obviously you did know about the Tarim mummies before,
yes,
Rupert. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yes. These. Well, it's an interesting. You get a lot of kind of very embellished stories about these mummies. Because they're actually They're mostly Caucasian. They're in this
those.
gap between
I see.
Caucasian
Yes. They are infamous.
and Eastern morphology, if that's the right word to use here. So that's why they've been known about before. The actual cemetery is extraordinary. There's quite a lot of them. The mummies have been found there. Quite fascinating to find that this article relates to them. It doesn't say how many of them. I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here because you haven't read that bit out. But
it says, thanks to over a decade of advancements in DNA analysis technologies, a team of archaeologists was able to confirm that the white substance was a kind of cheese by extracting mitochondrial DNA from samples. Doing so turned up cow and goat DNA and even the genetic material of microorganisms. The ancient cheese is kefir cheese, similar to yogurt but with a tangier taste and milkier consistency. It contained the same bacterial and fungal species that we find in kefir grains today and provided an opportunity to study how the bacteria Lactobacillus kefirfaciens has evolved over the last 3,600 years. A couple of paragraphs, but there's actually quite a lot to unpack in that without going through the whole article as it is. And I suppose, first and foremost, is it cheese? I mean, it's just said, which is kefir cheese, which is closer to yogurt, but even milkier and runnier than yogurt. It's cheese, Jim, but not as we know it.
It's a curious thing all round, isn't it? I don't feel equipped to argue the point. If these people are calling kefir cheese, then who am I to argue?
Well,
other
yes,
than the fact that
we need a Wikipedia definition of cheese, really, don't we? Well, the other thing is, I mean, if my experience is very narrow, you have to say, but kefir is like much, not only as it says as a tangier taste and a milkier consistency, it's a smellier substance.
Right.
Sharon keeps a carton of kefir in the fridge. I can't bear the stuff.
Okay, that's interesting, because you see, I wouldn't go anywhere near it personally.
No, I know that. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Anyway,
yes. Yeah, go on. They're very clear about the fact that it's cheese, so we'll roll with that.
Yeah. So in the modern era, the two key types of Lactobacillus kefirinafaciens, one that comes from Russia, which is the most used, and another form from Tibet. The Lactobacillus kefirinafaciens in the world's oldest cheese is actually most similar to the Tibetan variety around today, challenging long-held belief that kefir originated from North Caucasus mountain region of Russia. Our observations suggest kefir culture has been maintained in northwestern China's Xinjiang region since the Bronze Age, said Kwame Fu of the Institute of Vertebrate Paleontology and Paleoanthropology, Chinese Academy of Sciences, he said in a statement. Unprecedented study allowing us to observe how bacterium evolved over the past 3,000 years. Moreover, by examining dairy products, we've gained a clearer picture of ancient human life and their interactions with the world. This is just the beginning, and with this technology, we help to explore other previous unknown artifacts. Let's just get the squeamish thing out. Well, not squeamish thing, but, the oddity of smearing a mummy with kefir cheese. No, I'm not going to even go there. Make a guess at what that was for, except that maybe masking one smell with another.
When you look at half of the ancient rituals that we've discussed over the years, smearing cheese over a dead body isn't the strangest. So,
maybe
it's strange, isn't it? Other than the fact that whenever people talk about cheese, I have Mark Twain's words ring in my ear of milk. Cheese is milk's last leap for immortality, is what he said, and it does seem not wholly unreasonable to put cheese in as a food for the afterlife. But why you would smother the mummies with it is a curious. I don't know. It's strange.
Yeah, but there's fascinating stuff here. I mean, number one is we know nothing about Chinese prehistory, and that's a huge missing. And are we about to delve into that when we've got so much on our plates? I doubt it. But I do feel it's a massive missing, and there's so much in Chinese prehistory, not least of which is the earliest pottery you're likely to come across anywhere. But it just goes on and on and on. The sophistication of Chinese culture in the Neolithic and Chalcolithic and Bronze Age, just astonishing. But it's too much right at the moment.
Well, we cover it from time to time, don't we? We've talked about Silk Road stuff, and certainly some of the. That mint, the coin foundry that was found a couple of years back. There's some extraordinary stuff over there, and I think one of the reasons it's so impenetrable for us is it's hard enough when we have to try to translate European languages without getting papers that from China that have not been written in English. It is impenetrable. But it would be nice. In fact, do you know what? That's something. Note to self, really. I should try to. Excuse me, folks. I should try to track down
Try not
an
to
English-speaking
cough
Chinese
near your
archaeologist.
microphone.
I beg your pardon, everybody.
Yeah.
It would be a good idea to try to track down an English-speaking Chinese archaeologist.
Yeah. Do you know, there's one thing that I could do, because there's a spectacular collection of Chinese artifacts in the Compton Verney, which is a sort of museum, art centre, stately home place nearby.
Yeah.
Wonderful collection of prehistoric Chinese artifacts. I could do worse and just wander down there with a camera and point the camera at the cases just as a taster. And not that I know anything, not that I could provide a narrative for it. But the other thing is, fascinated to know that the two strains that we rely upon for cheese and kefir, or what have you, that we rely on today, originated in Russia and or Tibet. My mind's a little bit blown about that, because wow, you start applying ADNA to these strains. What kind of history, what kind of supportive migratory evidence are you going to have for the movement of people if you follow those strains of bacterium? I don't know if that's possible, but it's one of those, prisms, or one of those lenses that you could look at stuff through. I should think it would be extraordinarily supportive to working out, just the basic prehistory of people, as much as anything else. So I get this guy's enthusiasm, for it. That you think, oh, cheese on a mummy, but actually the whole study, that opens up, it could be quite revealing. Okay, we could spend a lot of time, but we won't. I think we should move on to something else.
Yeah.
And this is a sacrificial burial confirms Scythians' Eastern origins.
Yes.
I mean, it's another one of those instances, I suppose, Rupert, where we come across articles like this and we spout as if, makes us sound almost as if we know stuff. But, the Eurasian steppe and the Bronze Age and Iron Age is something well out of our comfort zone, or wheelhouse. That's the terminology, isn't it? It's outside of our...
Whatever you like, yeah.
Yeah. But it is that there are people out there doing this stuff, and making it their life's work. Studying the migrations of the steppe herders and the steppe horse people. And just to put it in perspective, of course, the Eurasian steppe, you probably know this stuff, but, it stretches right across. It's enormous. Yeah. And because, there has been discovered over the recent decades, quite a wealth of evidence from the inhabitants of the steppe, and quite a story established about the Scythians. And one of the things people want, because the Scythians is one of the cultures that Herodotus wrote about. So we always like confirming early writings about prehistoric peoples, just to give us a kind of foothold. And anything that confirms something that Herodotus says is of huge value indeed. So
it really is, because it's very interesting that Herodotus wrote all sorts of things about the Scythians, not least of all about their uses of narcotics. And yes, he used to talk at length about that. Now, and historians had thought that he probably made this up as exaggerations. but there have been, over the years, there have been various excavations that have shown that Herodotus wasn't making half of this stuff up at all. In fact, there was one particular burial that they found, that this chamber had been, it was somewhere that people had gone in there, and they had been burning opium and cannabis at the same time. And I can't imagine really what that must have been like, but it did. I can't remember the words that Herodotus used, but he was talking about them.
Right, we'll hear from
breathing
Herodotus.
this. We will, yes.
Again in a moment, yeah.
But yes, he talked about them breathing a smoke that no one can bear, or words to that effect. Anyway,
this point that Sibylla's making there is, she said she read stuff recently that said Scythians is a misnomer. There were too various to be lumped together, and I think that's absolutely fair. Like I say, it's too vast an area to come under one aegis, as it were. Scythians is a bit of a catch-all.
Don't you think? I agree with that, but I do think that to a degree it might be slightly analogous to us using the term Celtic. Which we know that it was a cultural thing, but there were originally there were 12 races of Celtic people, or something like that. There were certainly 12 languages.
Yeah.
So it may be analogous to that. As you say, they covered such a huge area, and it might be to do with the fact that they were almost nomadic horse riding people, and one of the few who had as well a good percentage of the time had women rulers as well. Women warriors and women rulers.
Let me just read a bit from the article and see where it gets us. Okay. By the way, I mean, I'll big that up on the screen. It's and it probably only makes sense when you can see it large. But just that is an excavated burial site. It is the actual burial site that we're going to be talking about, and just take in the size of it, because down the bottom right you can see tire marks and track marks of the trucks and vehicles, and an archaeologist's tent down there. It gives you an idea of the scale of the thing. And there are, what would you say, hundreds, thousands of these across the steppe region, Rupert? Kurgans?
Yeah, it's staggering, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, let me read a bit. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence for sacrificial funerary rituals at the early Iron Age burial mound of Tonug I in Tuva, Siberia, indicating that the horse-riding Scythian culture, best known from Eastern Europe, is originated far to the east. The Scythians were people of the Eurasian steppe, famous for their horse-focused culture and distinctive animal-style art, which depicts stylized animals in a series of specific poses. Their mobile way of life meant that their distribution fluctuated widely over time. The Scythians are known to have migrated from Central Asia to the Pontic steppe in modern southwest Russia and Ukraine, but their exact origins remain obscure. The horseback riding Scythians have sparked the imagination of people since the day of Herodotus, says senior author of the research, Dr. Gino Kaspari from the Max Planck Institute of Geoanthropology in the University of Bern. But the origins of their culture have long remained hidden in remote corners of the Eurasian steppe. So to track down the Scythians' elusive beginnings, a team of researchers from several institutions surveyed one of the earliest examples of a royal burial mound containing Scythian material culture, the late 9th century BC kurgan of Tonug I in Tuva, in southern Siberia. The results are published in the Journal of Antiquity. So I presume that is all the material remains that they found, but what we're looking at there is the fragmented remains of at least one human and 18 horses discovered on the mound, suggesting they were sacrificed in honor of the elite individual buried within. Bones were found in association with Scythian animal-style artifacts and horse riding equipment, indicating the burial is an early example of the horse-focused funerary rituals of the later Scythians described thousands of kilometers to the west in the classical texts. After years of tough fieldwork in Siberia, it is just wonderful to hold some of the oldest Scythian animal-style items in our hands, states Dr. Kaspari. Unearthing some of the earliest evidence of a unique culture phenomenon is a privilege and a childhood dream come true. I think the point has been made, though, here, that this has shoved the origins of the, I'm going to put rabbit ears up, Scythians way over to the east. And if you get Google Maps up or something like that, and draw from Ukraine right across, almost on the same parallel, right across to Siberia, you get an extent of just what an extraordinary thing is for people who've been studying this is to be able to pinpoint the origins over into the east of that region more than they have been able to do so previously. So that's the kind of takeaway from that. If anybody on Patreon, I think actually on YouTube, I think we did a thing because there was a splendid exhibition of gold from the steppe that was at the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge. Year and a half ago, something like that, and went there. I took lots of photographs and I did share them. Just extraordinary artifacts, and the clothing and the stuff. These masters of the steppe, masters of their horses, and quite a lot to be reckoned with. But the thing is, Rupert, to back this up, what did Herodotus say about their practice, their funerary practice?
Yeah,
Have you?
I've got a quote from Herodotus.
Remember, remains of one bloke and 14 horses in this singular.
18 horses.
18 horses in this singular.
18 horses. Yeah. Herodotus wrote this in. So Herodotus, Greek historian, in the 5th century BC, and he did a book called Histories. And so this comes from that. And he said about a funeral, they take the most trusted of the rest of the king's servants and strangle 50 of these and 50 of their best horses and empty and clean the bellies of them all, fill them with chaff and sew them up again. Then they fasten half of a wheel to 2 posts, the hollow upward, and the other half to another pair of posts, until many posts thus prepared are planted in the ground. And after driving stakes lengthways through the horses' bodies to their necks, they place the horses up on the wheels so that the wheel in front supports the horse's forequarters, and the wheel behind takes the weight of the belly by the hindquarters, and the forelegs and hind legs hang free. And putting bridles and bits in the horses' mouths, they stretch the bridles to the front and fasten them with pegs. Then they take each one of the 50 strangled young men and mount him on the horse. Their way of doing this is to drive an upright stake through each body, passing it up alongside the spine to the neck, leaving enough of the stake projecting below to be fixed in a hole made in the other stake, which passes through the horse. So having set horsemen of this fashion around the tomb, they ride away. There you go. I don't know if Herodotus was exaggerating. He wasn't drug taking, so I don't know if he's exaggerating here with the numbers. It seems an extraordinary waste to kill 50 of their best horses, let alone 50 of their best men. But yeah. And And it is true that on numbers of curves, they always find numbers of horses with fewer people, just the remains, scattered and what have you. So isn't that just so barbaric and grotesque, really?
Yeah. But that element of what Herodotus was saying is supported. Maybe the rest is clickbait, but classical clickbait.
Well, Iron Age clickbait. I don't know.
Well, I'm thinking about Herodotus and
yes,
getting read way back then. Oh yes, Helen says, was that with the tall hat? Yes, Helen.
Yes, it was.
Is the tall hat. I wish I had the pics here handy so I could back that up and people could. I'd be able to share what you were mentioning. Incredibly tall, conical hat decorated with, as it was saying in the text there, animal style items in gold and bronze and stuff. Quite extraordinary.
I'm looking before me because I could reach for the British Museum book and show it to you, but I'm fuzzy, Fuzzy of south of France here, and I don't think that would help.
Fuzzy Soskin. That's a good name, nickname actually. Yeah, mind you, it's getting more to apply to both of us, I think. Goodness no, keep going. Shall we go to Poland?
Yeah,
because we've done the east. I don't think we're going back east today, are we? We've done China. We've done Siberia. Yeah,
we're coming west a bit now, aren't we?
Okay, and it's a lightish bit, but it gives us good leverage into talking about longhouses and the linear band ceramic and all that. Right, okay, stop wittering. Show the blooming thing. There we go. 6,000-year-old Neolithic. Hold on a second. Longhouses uncovered in Sandymierz Mokorzin. I try to get these things right. It's not very well. That's an archaeological excavation. Doesn't really tell us much. Excavations in Sandymierz Mokorzin. And I've got to get the name of the area right. Wish me luck. Świętokrzyżskie.
Well done.
I'm not going to attempt that again. That'll do. That's fine.
It'll do.
Yeah. In Poland, have uncovered one of the earliest examples of Neolithic longhouse in the Sandymierz upland, dating back to 5,300 to 4,900 BC. So, I'm just beginning to get a handle on the kinds of dates and the movement of peoples across Europe in the Neolithic, and matching these dates to some of the things we were looking at in Brittany, and that by this time the Neolithic hadn't reached Brittany. Put it that way, not quite, or was just about to. So it says the initial aim of the excavation was to confirm the existence of a settlement associated with the Funnelbeaker culture. That's 3,700 to 3,200 BC, which is much later. Evidenced by large storage pits containing fragments of clay vessels, flint tools, stone millstones, and animal bones. Now, you see, here's an example. Funnelbeaker culture. We call ourselves the prehistory guys, and yet the Funnelbeaker culture, there we go. They're really, really important, and they hardly ever get a mention. And it's our sort of, we tend to be Brit-centric, or we've started off Stonehenge-centric, and, if we were Scandinavian, we would really be making a deal about these people because, these are the people that moved up north. Anyway, I'm wittering, and I know nothing about Funnelbeaker culture. So That's the thing, and yet they're so important. However, archaeologists also found an earlier Neolithic settlement from the linear pottery culture, or linear band ceramic culture, or band ceramic culture, associated with the first farmers who migrated to this region from Transcarpathia. Where's Transcarpathia? It's Ukraine, I think, isn't it?
There
I think it is. Yeah.
Across the
That's
Carpathians.
interesting. That's interesting. Hold that thought. Yeah, so linear pottery culture flourished from around 5,500 to 5,500 to 4,500 BC. And it's derived from the characteristic linear decorations on ceramic vessels. Hold that thought. The team found traces of a longhouse constructed using a post and beam technique and aligned north on a north-south axis. The structure was approximately 6 meters wide and over 20 meters in length. So the important thing is that this is the discovery of the longhouse. It's the first of its kind in the Sandimech upland, emphasized Dr. Hab Florek. Houses of this type were previously known from Kuryavwi, no, that's wrong, Kuryavwi, Subcarpathia and Lesser Poland. According to the researchers, the discovery is significant as it suggests a permanent settlement in the early Neolithic period rather than a temporary encampment. It also demonstrates continuous habitation in the area over thousands of years. So, yeah, boom, that's why they're excited about it, because this is transition, this is the point at which the Mesolithic becomes the Neolithic for them. So any site that can speak to the transition from the Mesolithic to the Neolithic, speak to people becoming sedentary where previously they weren't, is a very exciting thing. And it's exciting to us as it's a whole thing of our story of Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge. Did I mention Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge? You can support the Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge project. Just follow the link down below. Buy us a coffee for as little as
very good.
£5 goes a long way, I tell you.
It does.
Yeah. So who knew that we'd be getting so excited about the linear band ceramic? So that's that. There's nothing much to say about that apart from that good stuff. But it segues us neatly into the fact that I've just come back from Austria, from a holiday in Vienna. And one thing I felt it really important to do while in the area is visit a site that first images I saw of it were on the Wikipedia entry for Kreisgrabenanlagen, circular ditched enclosures, as a name, or rondels or roundels as they're called, which are the wholly ubiquitous sort of. I'm going to use the word monument. They're not monuments, that exist in Central Europe, Poland, all down through Germany, Czechia, and into Austria. And it seems that most settlements seemed to have a circular ditched enclosure associated with them. Now, bear in mind that we're talking a couple of... What's the matter?
No, it's all right. I'm just laughing at you. Very, very good muting your microphone then.
Oh, yeah. I'd like to try and keep it professional. I am too, actually. What was I saying? You put me off my stroke there. You weren't paying attention. I got caught.
No, you're in Vienna. You were just coming back from a holiday in Vienna. That's all.
No, that's not where I was. No, I was down through Central Europe talking about how these rondels are associated with settlements. It's not settlements are associated with rondels, but most settlements seem to have some kind of circular ditched enclosure. And what I was about to say, bear in mind that we're talking 2,000 years before we get henges, although the form is vaguely similar. Lots more to say about that. But the place I visited is called the Heldenberg Visitor Centre. So I was kind of expecting a half Disneyfied representation of one of these rondels there, but nothing could have been further from the truth. The place I visited, it's about 40 minutes drive north-west of Vienna. And it was a rainy day, so we didn't have any company. It's quite a big visitor centre, which is not focused on this Stone Age village recreation. It's actually more focused on a motor museum and a winery and a Lipizzaner training centre. But no, separate out and away, a walk away in the woods is this Reconstruction settlement and visitor centre. Because it was raining, we had the place to ourselves. It was just quite extraordinary, a little bit eerie, but also, well, you'll see. Anyway, shall I run the movie? I've put together a few clips of some of the stuff that I've got back, so we can talk. The footage as I've got loads of footage, but I just thought I'd bung those 2 minutes together.
Yes.
You have a question, Rupert?
No, I find the whole thing fascinating. Actually, it's interesting. It's the fact that the guys who have done the reconstructions, the fact that they've decorated the houses. And I find the concept intriguing because I can't think of any other instance where reconstruction has been
don't
created.
Tell me I was muted all that while.
No, you weren't. I could hear you.
Oh, okay. Nigel says, should there be any studio commentary? Okay.
Well, I could hear you.
Okay.
So,
oh, no, no, people didn't hear anything from me during the VT. Oh, sorry, guys. It seemed to automatically mute me, which is really tedious. I'm so sorry.
Oh.
Gosh,
yeah. And you said such wise words.
I did.
Yeah.
They've gone. Never to be. I mean, I could attempt to do it again, but yeah. I have to say, no, I will actually try to, knowing people have seen that without sound, I think it's important that they catch up with what I tried to say about that. Did I, before I ran the film, I was talking about, how far it was from Vienna and that I was expecting it to be a bit Disneyfied.
You were.
Yeah. But that was I think the point at which I started, what you've just seen, is not a representation of a settlement in situ, but it's a reproduction of a site that's actually about 10, 15 miles away, more north of Vienna. And it's a very well excavated site called Schletz. And what you've seen there
I hesitate to suggest this, but you could run it again and talk through it again and just cut that out for when it gets posted.
No, I can't do anything when it gets posted, so it's important that I talk talk now. Schletz, which what happened was that that reproduction, that reconstruction, was part of an exhibition in 2005 in Lower Austria to celebrate their Neolithic heritage. So it was an opportunity for the archaeologists at Schletz, or from Schletz, to do this massive archaeological experiment in reconstructing the village and the rondel, not only just as an exercise in the visual thing, but they, as far as they could, they used the foraged materials, i.e. as far as they could, local materials that they had to go looking for. And not only that, they reconstructed it using, as far as they could, authentic tools. So, from what we know of Neolithic tools, they were using flint, obsidian, and stone axe heads and stuff to actually chop and shape and bind what you've just seen there. So they, essentially it was a time and motion thing. They worked out, by doing that, they were able to work out how many people were needed over what period of time to create such a thing, including, of course, the ditch. I'm not sure they dug out all of the ditch all the way around, but a substantial amount of it in there. And the layout inside the house you saw at the latter part of that was with the oven and the hearth. That's as is in the discovered archaeology there. I think that's about as much as I said. I know there's going to be queries about the statuary and the colouring. So I don't know if you were going to ask me about that, Rupert, or query me about that. What I know, go for it.
Well, it was what I was saying before you noticed that there was no sound. Was that I'm not aware of any other reconstructions where people have used pottery styles and things like that to actually decorate buildings. Mm-hmm. And I wondered what they had based that upon, because none of these things are fanciful.
No.
What was it that made them think that the buildings might have been decorated in such a way? It's an unusual concept.
Well, it's not that. It's what do you do if you're going to do something like that? Do you do nothing? Which is probably wrong. That's where it's almost certainly wrong. to not embellish in any way whatsoever. And then after that, you think, well,
Okay.
I've got to do
I don't agree,
something.
but fair enough.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because imagine it without anything. That's more misleading than putting something there, to represent some kind of creativity going on, some kind of imprint, I think.
I still don't agree. I think you
Oh,
look at
really?
any house. You look at any house that you know about, and I'm very happy to have any number of disagreements. I mean, people might think I'm entirely wrong.
Oh, I'm not
But I'm
talking.
just
I'm
thinking
not
of every
talking.
house that you know through history,
No, I'm not talking about
where
specifically about the house. I mean, your jury's
right.
out on that one. But I mean, no, the statuary and the colouring and all that.
Okay, no, we're talking at cross purposes here. I'm talking about the houses. I find that fanciful, but no, absolutely, statuary and what have you. No, we all have ornaments in our gardens. It's something that humans have been doing forever. Yeah.
But the statuary is. I'll share a few photographs of stuff I took of the material culture from Schlitz and other rondels roundabout. Of the material culture, and you'll see the form that taken up in the larger statuary around the rondel in the reproduction derives very strongly from some of the figurines and things, the shapes and sort of symbolic viewing of the human body that they had. So that's not fanciful. The other bit that's not fanciful is the colour. As you'll see in the photographs coming up, the pottery was coloured, and they've been able to analyse the pigments and stuff that they're using, and those are the main colours they have: the black, the ochre, and the red. And the design on the end of the house is not fanciful. That comes directly from some of the pottery that they found. Now, about the choices about the... let me just actually go back to the movie. I'm muted. I've unmuted myself. Oh. And Rupert's unmuted as well. I do beg your pardon, folks. That happened again. Interesting. It automatically muted us. What you see there is what we're talking about. Now, it is known that the inner trench to support the timbers of the palisade were in a single trench, and it is known that those were raw and butted up against each other with no gap between. However, the post holes outside of the palisade were square or rectangular. So what do you do if you've got square or rectangular posts? What do you decide without any other evidence, to do with them, to represent them? It's got to be assumed that they're carving, going to the effort of carving square posts for a purpose. And the furthest our imagination seem to be able to get is to put lintels on them. So what do? It's a fair shout, and or put statuary in. I mean, they've only put 4 in there, and the rest of them round there are just bare, just coloured and painted. But how wide were the square posts? What are they? About 40 centimetres? Something like that.
But if you give an idea of scale there, because we were talking about this, it's amazing how deceptive the wide angle.
Okay, so you've got a post there. My head standing next to it would be under that armpit. They're quite tall. Yeah. So you can see that the posts are pretty thick. Yeah, I mean, it's got a good scale to it. Going back there. Oh, and not forgetting, I haven't talked about the ditch. I mean, that is deep. That's one thing with the camera up high on a pole here. It does give an impression of how deep that is, and so deep that it's a hazard, so that's why there's a fence around it. Somebody asked earlier about chalk. No, it's not chalk here. It's clay, and of course, we could get into a whole conversation about pits and banks and stuff. Doesn't seem to be much of a bank, but they utilised a lot of this clay in the daub lath for the houses themselves, and of course, it's a source for pottery. So you're getting a lot of raw material out of the ground there. The thing is, though, I can't help thinking of the palisade and the ditch as being defensive.
Yeah,
we could be here all night talking about that. I'll just throw that out there. I just, it's a conversation to get into. I think it would be multi-purpose, but the principal thing, they're defensive. Somewhere you can put your livestock, and I'm afraid. Now here's the thing: Schlitz, just a few miles away. I was horrified to discover is one of the 4 known linear band ceramic massacre sites. Somebody mentioned the other ones earlier, Hoxheim, Talheim. Is it Hoxheim or Talheim? And Kilian Schlitz something. I'm sorry, I've forgotten the names of them. But horrible things went on there in that ditch. The one, the real one at Schlitz, they found over 200 bodies that had been massacred, blunt force trauma, and one with an arrow in their back. So having been wandered about this place, very close to it, as I said before, I was saddened. I felt, I'd wandered about wandered about their village and got familiar with it, and then found that they'd all been killed. It was nasty. Again, whole other discussion, but it just opens up this thing, this whole story of the people coming up the Danube and the complications. I'm afraid linear band ceramic or band ceramic. Again, it's a bit of a catch-all. You might as well call them. It's like, as you said before, Celts and stuff. There's complication to that. Many different styles. I mean, in fact, the style of the let's have a look. The style of some of the stuff you're going to see is very distinctive. But I'm just showing this because it just gives you an impression of how how many actual how many of these actual things there are. This is all aerial photography, obviously. Of course, the multi-ditch rondels, but they're all over the flipping place, and they've got to be talked about, and will be as part of Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge. Sorry, I'm going a bit slow here because my text let me down. Oh, there's a lot of them. Blooming heck.
Yeah.
Oh, and what all the pictures we're looking at here, I snapped from inside the museum, which is one of the best little associated museums I've ever come across. Really told the story of Schlitz and of this particular place. And this is one of the implements, I think, that the archaeologists used to construct it. There's a don't think that's a construction implement, but that's a scythe, an adze, and a close-up of an adze. All good stuff. So here's some original pottery I've discovered in Schlitz, and maybe at some of the other rondels nearby. And if you look closely, of course, you can see the coloration on some of these and the decoration. You're getting the ochres and the reds coming out. There's a bit more of a close-up there. And that is a piece together, almost a whole piece of pottery. It's an extraordinary discovery. You think how old that is, and the fact that the colour is still coming through. So based on this, of course, they've been able to do reproductions. And when you get the original colours, it's been an experimental archaeological study to get what colours and what pigments they were using. And once they've done that, to be able to start actually producing these beautiful, beautiful things. And how wonderfully striking these are. I'll be happy having these on...
I like that one in particular.
In the house. Yeah. Look at that. Isn't that exquisite?
Yeah, that's so modern. That one, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there it is in context. Is that a top for a pot? I mean...
It's got to be a lid, hasn't it, that one? Yeah.
Yeah. And remember, taking you back to 4,800 BC here.
Yeah, sorry.
I'll try to whip through these. I'm sorry. More. Oh, and here we come on to some... Is that a doggy?
Yeah, Doberman.
You think so?
Well,
yeah.
They didn't have them there, did they?
No. But did they have two-headed llamas?
I wonder if that's a toy.
I wonder if that's a toy, yeah. Now, remember the shape of the statuary that we were seeing earlier? I think you can safely say that largely based on that. There's no size thing. I would say she's about 8 inches tall. There again, that's probably 10 inches tall, that one. And that's a reproduction, but nevertheless that existed. So redolent of Cycladic sculpture that down a rabbit hole you could go with that. This one is astonishing because that occurs as not symbolic or anything like that. That occurs as directly representational. I've never seen anything quite so representational from so long ago, frankly. So I don't know what the provenance of that is, but that is definitely from one of the nearby rondels. Same goes for these. Not really seen anything like these before. Exquisite. That's a reproduction of something. I mean, that looks like something from Çatalhöyük, doesn't it?
Yeah, and Wallace and Gromit.
Not that I'm going there. And that, how weird is that one?
Yeah.
Anyway, back to reality. There's a lot to take on board, and that's just from one place I've been. And this stuff was right across Central Europe and up the Danube. There's a whole history of culture and mysteries of cultures here. Not least of which how much people were, fighting amongst each other. Don't know if too much is being made of the massacre sites. We don't know. But anyway, this is all grist to the mill and all part of Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge, and I'm glad to be able to bring it to you. And I think we'll be doing more about these folk as in the coming months as we work through this. Hope you enjoyed that little show from Austria. Who knew? It's an extraordinary visitor centre. I didn't have time to go in the motor museum. It was a fantastic motor museum. Heck, anything more bubbled into your mind there, Rupert?
So many potential rabbit holes, actually. But a couple of comments came up while you were talking that Talim and Herxheim, where Sibylla said Herxheim is a whole other proposition. Yeah, Herxheim was the site that was just cannibalism. I said just cannibalism, right? So Talim was a massacre site. Herxheim was the site that was. How many did they find? There was something like 1,000 the remains of 1,000 people there, and cannibalism was just the thing there. Quite different. I don't remember. I mean, that's actually about all I remember. I don't know how they sit in relation to each other time-wise.
Quite at the same time, very much at the same time.
What, Talim and Herxheim?
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, anything we could add to that would be suppositional, but there are many people we can talk to that know a lot more than we do about all this. So I'm glad, just gradually hanging things together. Did anybody ask any specific questions that I may have missed? There's a debate about cannibalism and all the rest of it. But lovely pottery. Do you want to? Should we carry on now to the last item? So. It is the last item, isn't it? So. Oh no, it's not. I do beg your pardon. There are two more actually, Rupert. Okay, here we go. Advanced technology. I wouldn't call it that.
Oh.
Advanced technology discovered in the Neolithic dwelling in Denmark. Have you got a text in front of you that you can take while my throat's drying up, or yours is probably?
I have.
Cool.
Railroad construction through a farm on the Danish island of Falster has revealed a 5,000-year-old Neolithic site hiding an advanced technology, a stone-paved root cellar. Never heard of a root cellar, to be honest.
Well, we haven't heard of a root cellar because it's not a term we use over this side of the Atlantic, but in the US and Canada, I believe it's called a root cellar because it's any dry, cooler area with a more stable temperature. They're associated with storage of root vegetables.
Right. So we just call it a cellar then, would we? Okay.
Well,
archaeology researchers from the Museum Lolland Falster, along with Aarhus University, Denmark, have analysed the site in a paper, Stone-Paved Cellars in the Stone Age, archaeological evidence for a Neolithic subterranean construction from Nigardzev. I'm sorry, that's not the right pronunciation.
Nigardzev.
Anyway.
Nigardzev. No, it's not. No, sorry, it's not. It's Norwegian. Nigardzev. Sorry, carry on.
Okay. The emergence. We're funnel beakering again. The emergence of the funnel beaker culture around 6,000 years ago brought the Scandinavian region's first switch to agriculture and domesticated animals, leading to a more sedentary lifestyle. With the new way of life came the region's first construction of houses, megalithic tombs, and landscape-altering structures, a huge shift away from the highly mobile hunter-gatherer strategy of the late Mesolithic. It says. Excavations at the site uncovered two phases of house construction. Both structures were built using a common funnel beaker culture design, the Mosby type, where interior posts provide support for a large double-span roof. Phase 1 included 38 post holes, while Phase 2 had 35, indicating that a significant amount of architectural planning was involved. The floors within the structures were made of compacted loam, a soil mixture of sand and clay. Loam floors date back much further in some parts of the world, but would be a cutting-edge technology for these Neolithic dames. Globally, loam only went out of fashion for factory floors in the mid-20th century, and more than 1 billion people still use it in homes today. I didn't know that, to be honest.
No, neither do I. Did I?
I'll
It's
zoom
quite a long article, so I
1,000
didn't intend you to
No, I just
read it
one
all.
more paragraph that I'll read there. I think is interesting. More than 1,000 artifacts, including flint tools, pottery pieces, and 2 fossilized sea urchins, were recovered from the site. The fossilized sea urchins is interesting because I do wonder. You look at all the places that we've visited over the years where fossils have been incorporated into sites or found at the sites. You think, what did these people make of a fossil? Something that was clearly organic and made of stone. It's quite an extraordinary thing. But as you say, it was because otherwise, as you say, it's a long article. But it's the stability of the temperature below ground. It's obviously it's a significant find that.
But they've been able to determine that there was definitely a sunken feature. The loam floor doesn't extend. I mean, I don't know about the details, but it's another complexion of stuff because I've always assumed down flat on the floor, but if the principles of refrigeration by sinking something into the earth were known, then of course will they be utilised. Why wouldn't you? When you're sedentary and all the rest of it, if you depend on potatoes, root vegetables, the rest, or anything else that'll keep better if it's a bit cooler and in a stable, not necessarily cooler, but in a much more stable atmosphere. And it doesn't have to be, when we say cellar, we mean somewhere you can walk down to underneath your house, and it's probably got headroom. A root cellar doesn't necessarily have headroom in it. It just means you've got space in which you can shove things that are in a often, of course, they are walk-in, but they don't have to be to be effective. That's the point, and I expect that's the point here, that you've got a sunken area accessible separately, which is layered with those stones. If you saw that, that's what also gave the clue away, is if you see in the picture here, the actual sunken areas that have got stones in the bottom of them. That's the unusual feature. All right. And and this is much more recent though than the longhouses we've just been talking about. It's almost another 1,500 years on.
Yeah, these are the second phase was sometime after 2,800 BC.
Yeah. Okay. Enough. Let's move on to the last article, and it's it's a return visit, isn't it? It's a return visit to Tollense, we have been told. There's a closer pronunciation, shall we say.
Yeah. It's the site that keeps on giving, and I think will continue to do so for many years to come.
Europe's oldest battlefield just got stranger with new evidence and outsiders involved. Now, sorry, Rupert, can you carry on? I'm just about to clear my chest.
Yes. Okay. Northeastern Germany's Tollense Valley. What?
No, I was just about to put a bit more context on this because, we recently, quite relatively recently, done a piece about Tollense with respect to new thinking that the battle was not between two armies, but was an ambush of a large caravan heading north-south. Yeah. Even on the Amber, the Amber Road from the Baltic and taking it further down south, and maybe it was an ambushed caravan I'm not sure what the nailing. I think it was DNA evidence that was behind that thing. So that's when I say returning to Tollense. That's what I mean. But this is extra stuff. This is
well,
sorry,
it is fascinating, really, that I think it illustrates the point very clearly that you've got different teams of researchers who have got very different ideas about what was actually going on. Because the implication of this one is very much that it's armies. It says northeastern Germany's Tollense Valley hosts what is known as the world's oldest battlefield, an archaeological site bearing the remains of some 150 individuals dating to the 13th century BCE. Bearing in mind that they've only excavated a very small percentage of the area, so the 150 individuals is what they've found so far. Now, analysis of arrowhead found on the site revealed that the weaponry was not produced in the area, indicating that the conflict involved people from elsewhere in Europe. The team's research was published today in Antiquity. The paper is actually very lengthy and involved, which is why we're not referencing that now. But the arrowheads are a kind of smoking gun.
I'll put a link down below. I will put a link.
The arrowheads are a kind of smoking gun, says lead author of the research, Leif Inselman, a researcher at Freie University, Berlin, and lead author of the study. Just like the murder weapon in a mystery, they give us a clue about the culprit, the fight of the Tollense Valley battle, and where they came from. The site was first proposed to be a battlefield in 2011, though the parties involved in the conflict remain unclear. According to the release, based on the number of human remains left on the site, some researchers estimate over 2,000 people were involved with the battle itself. Now the recent team has determined that at least some of the combatants were not locals to northern Germany. Inselman has collected nearly 5,000 arrowheads from across Central Europe and discovered that different types were present at the battle site. The arrowheads were flint and bronze, though the flint arrowheads were typical from the area. The bronze arrowheads were a combination of local and non-local types. Many of the arrowheads were found in the Tollense area, but others, namely those with straight or rhombic bases, are more generally associated with regions farther south, like Bavaria and Moravia. The foreign arrowheads have not been found in tombs in the Tollense area, indicating that the arrowheads from elsewhere didn't simply make their way to the region through trade. The barbs, it seemed, were brought to Tollense for the purpose of conflict. One set of remains on the site makes it clear: a human skull cap punctured with a bronze arrowhead. I think we had that picture right at the top, didn't we?
There we go. That's what it is.
No.
Sorry, were you reading?
What? No, I wasn't. No, I can't see you at the moment, actually. Though the arrowheads, I'm skipping a bit because it's another long article. Though the arrowheads do not clear up the parties involved in the conflict, they show that the large-scale violence for the time involved groups from farther afield than previously known. As the team noted in their paper, no helmets and breastplates typical of the time have shown up from archaeological excavations of the site, so more digs may be necessary to reveal more about the ancient combatants of Tollense, the remains of many of whom remain on the site. There you go. Okay. It is interesting, isn't it? I mean, I don't know how much excavation is still planned for the site, but clearly it's something that there is so much more to be discovered there, really.
Or unless they feel they've got enough of a sample rate. I mean, their numbers are extrapolated with full knowledge that they haven't excavated the whole site, so I'm sure they're extrapolating numbers, based on the sample rate and the area that they have been able to excavate. But the important bit to get is, that there are several types of arrowhead represented at the battle site. And according to the paper, one particular type, type 4C, they call it. Don't know if that doesn't have any meaning. That doesn't have any meaning outside the paper, I don't think, or academics, the academia. Is that those arrowheads come from much further south, and the flint in particular, and several of the other bronze style arrowheads are determinedly much more local. So the mystery kind of deepens. But as I was saying earlier, the implication from the article itself is still making the assumption that we're talking about two armies, as if there was a deliberate conflagration. And given the evidence of the previous paper, that speaks about a caravan on it, and we're talking about a trade route here, so a trade caravan, and they would be large. These would be huge.
Absolutely,
these caravans.
Well, Stuart says it doesn't preclude the idea of a caravan ambush, and no, it certainly doesn't. It certainly doesn't. It's that's why I'm saying there's so much more potentially discovered, because once they can extrapolate numbers, if they found, for example, in excavations, if they found the remains of whatever, burnt out wagons, whatever. It's
the thing is, I suppose this kind of stuff is grist to the mill, because in order to raise the funds to do further excavations, they have to be able to say, well, now we know this, we expect to find this, or if by doing more excavations, we can, we can follow this theory more and and further illuminate this period in our history. But that's what I was trying to say, that this does not preclude at all the idea of a caravan being ambushed, and why, and I would assume that a caravan would arm itself, and it would arm itself with its with weaponry from its starting off point. So that's if I was betting man, I would put the weight on that rather than the deliberate coming together of two armies.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? That because the two main theories that we've had are that, number one, it could be the caravan that we've just been talking about. Number two, that it was a battle about control of this major crossing point at Tollense, which is it was a bridge from one region to another. The principal crossing point on the river, and so actually being in control of that crossing point would have been a position of power. So maybe we don't know. I find it, bearing in mind, everything that we ever say, it's about the people, and this is something, there isn't anything else like it, archaeologically speaking, that I can think of anyway. So it is something that's very evocative, really.
Yeah, well, as you say, throw human beings in the mix, and all bets are off, aren't they? Really?
Indeed.
What are we like? What are we like? Anyway, I think that's the end of the program. I'm sorry to say. I hope you've enjoyed that. Have you, Rupert?
I've enjoyed it. Cool. I hope you have.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. It's so gradually we pull this web together, getting stuff from all over the place, different news articles that come up. Occasionally have us do little deeper dives, and I was glad to be able to use the Longhouse thing as a leverage to lift the edge of the carpet on the linear band ceramic, and there. I keep using the word ubiquitous. It's a better word than ubiquitous, isn't there?
It depends whether you mean ubiquitous or not.
Yeah, probably do. But, you know, it's one of the biggest, hugest bits of prehistory, the linear band ceramic, and yet we don't pay that much attention to it. It's probably because they didn't build Stonehenge or Karnak or leave stone monuments. There's the thing. They just left pits in the ground and bits of pottery, not quite so thing, yet crucially important to the whole story. Talking of the whole story, as I've mentioned earlier, soon we've got coming out another piece about Göbekli Tepe in a much broader context than you probably heard it talk about in this kind of program before. Got a thing about Stonehenge, Rupert and I talking heads. We've got loads of stuff from Brittany coming up, so look forward to those coming your way over the next few months, and I think we'll be doing a few more of these lives as well, and we'll be very glad to see you then. Before we go, don't forget to have a look at our Patreon page and join this lovely, wonderful community of supportive people. You won't regret it. There's loads more to enjoy there. And also, of course, the Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge project does need your help. We've got to go on some adventures and bring you back film next year from Montviso, from Greece, and other places beyond. So anything you can do to help us bring you that would be most welcome. Links in the description below. And with that, I think it is time to call it a day, Mr. Soskin. It is goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me. You take good care, folks. Look after yourselves.
Thank you, folks. Thank you for all your input and helping making it worthwhile. You're good people. Till the next time, ta-ra for now.